Yes, I create TV shows. Chopped is the big one. Has anyone seen Chopped in a room this size? Oh my gosh, there's people up there. Chopped is amazing. Chopped Junior, Chopped Champions. It's my favorite television show for so many reasons. It's now been on 10 years. But my creative partner, Cleve Keller, who is a genius. She is the Mozart of TV show creation. She's a titan of industry. We've created over 2,400 episodes of TV. And sometimes we do a good job. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because of this. What is this to me? What is this? This is TV shows. In any given year, there's thousands of them, thousands of ideas, thousands of shows. Executives have ideas. People have ideas and try to get them on TV. Then some of those ideas make it to development. Some make it to a pilot. Some then make it on air. Very rare, but sometimes you get a show on the air. And there's all these ideas, and they're great. There's garbage ideas under here, but I'm not even talking about them. I'm talking about these. And that's not really what Cleve and I do, right? That's not our goal. All of these. Our goal is that. The one idea that rises above the others. The one idea that's chopped. In 2009, a lot of shows came out. A lot of shows were in development. Two are still on the, a lot of unscripted shows, the types of shows that I do. Two are still on the air. Shark Tank and Chopped. So for the last 15, 20 years, that's what I've studied. I've studied how do you take a show in a pile of this and get the one thing that floats up. What is this to you? To many of you, to most of you. Some of you are obviously have just wandered in. I don't know why you're here. But those of you who are the future of real estate, these are real estate agents. So many real estate agents, right? I mean, literally, they're surrounding you right now. So much real estate, so many agents. And what you want to be, some of you, is one that floats a little bit higher. The one that people remember. How do you do that? What is that secret, Noll? Tell us. How do you do the one show that floats to the top? I picture a clock. A big clock. In my living room, I have a big couch. It's a big, brown, comfy couch, and above it is a big, giant clock. Titan of industry with his big clock. There's a 12, like most clocks. There's a 6. Picture a giant clock. And what I want you to do is stand in front of that imaginary clock, and there's 2 handles on the clock. Right now, the hands are pointing to the 12. I want you to stand there, and I want you to give it 1 click. Click. 1. Major click. Major click. 1 click. That is your goal. You're standing at the clock. There's the clock. 1 click. Now the hands are pointing to the 1. The clock, the original clock, is comfort. As humans, we crave comfort, right? I know I do. I'm a guy who's in my 40s, late 40s. I've got 3 kids. I've got a wife. I just crave comfort. I have my favorite slippers. I have my favorite coffee in my favorite coffee mug. We have our morning workouts. We crave comfort. Humans crave comfort. That's what they want in life. That's what that clock is. But we also crave one thing. One thing that's new. One thing that fires us up. One thing that excites us. One thing that we can talk about at a party. One thing we can tell people about. We can tweet about. We can Facebook about. One thing. Just one thing. It can't actually be 2 things. It's too complicated. There's too much going on. It's not 2 things. One thing that's new. Here's a great example. This is one of my favorites from television. 2004. Say you're standing outside the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, New York City. It's 2004. And in front of you is a giant billboard for a brand new television series. It's 1 hour long. It's a primetime network series. It's brand new. I can still see the billboard. It's called Lost, right? 2004. Who here has seen Lost or knows about Lost? Of course you do, right? You're staring at that billboard, and that billboard, you can see the water in the back. There are palm trees. In the center, there is a handsome man. He's approximately 37 years of age. He's a white man with brown hair. He looks rugged and handsome. Next to him, there's an older gentleman. He's bald. He looks angry. True story. Next to him, on the other side, there's an African-American man. He looks concerned. There's a younger blonde woman. She looks sweet. There's an athletic brunette woman. She's attractive. There's a bad boy. This is Lost. And people said, I've never seen anything like it on television before. I've never seen anything like it. Reviewers said, you've never seen anything like this. You've never seen anything like it. Creators, when they did interviews, they'd say, yes, we want to do something totally new and original. There's a large, diverse cast of people. It's huge. You've never seen anything like it. Except, you and I know about the one click. So let's go back. What was popular at the time? Noll, if you're so sure of yourself, there must have been something else that was kind of similar, a one click away. Let's go back to 2000, 4 years before. You're standing in the middle of Times Square and you look across. At this point, I actually worked in the building next door, so I remember this. You could look and see there was a large billboard there. It was an hour-long primetime network show with a diverse cast. In the center was a man. He was a white man, approximately 37 years of age, with brown hair, attractive, rugged. Well, how close were these billboards? No, well, next to him, there was an older, bald man. He looked angry. On the other side of him, there was an African-American man. He looked concerned. There was a blonde woman. She looked sweet. She was younger. There was a woman who was a brunette. She was attractive. There was a bad boy. You could see the water. There were palm trees. What? I thought you've never seen it? In 2004, that show was called Lost. In 2000, that gigantic hit show was called Survivor. One click. People said, no one's ever seen anything like this before, but true, that is true. But this was a reality show. Click. One major click. And here is a drama. Comfort, but one thing that's new. So my question for you, if you're in this real estate world, if that's what you're doing, and you're trying to rise above, my question is, what is your one click? What is your one major click? If someone's at a party, if Lucy says to me, I need a real estate agent, I'm not going to remember anybody's name, right? There's all these real estate agents. There's no way. Unless your name is House, by the way. Anybody's name is House, be a real estate agent. Then I'll remember. Johnny House, he sells houses. Find him. Sally House, I love her. If you're a good, and by the way, as we say, Cleve and I, if the clock don't work, the click don't work. You have to be good. I'm not here to tell you how to be a great real estate agent. You have to be great for this to work, right? That's the baseline. These are the crappy real estate agents down here. If you want to rise above, what is your one click? At a dinner party a couple weeks ago, and there was a woman who's a real estate agent. And she said, what are you doing? And I told her about new shows. And I said, oh, I'm going to do this conference. I had never heard of it, but it's the Inman Connect. And she said, Inman Connect? I said, yes. Titans of industry meeting the future of real estate. She said, that's a big deal. And I said, now I know she was telling the truth. But as I explained to her, she said, well, what's my one click? And I said, look, I don't actually think it's that hard. It has to be something that's 100% you, and it has to be something that will permeate everything that you do. So I said, just free thinking now. What's you? Who's you? And she said, I'm a real estate agent. I was like, well, all of them are too, so that's not it. I'm a mom. She has 2 kids, whatever. This woman has amazing glasses. I don't know why I know that, why that sticks in my head. She's a thin woman, attractive, glasses. Always a nice pair of glasses. And I knew she went to Cornell. I didn't know why, but that, again, I work in TV. I don't know much, but I know Cornell, that's a good school. So as we were talking, her husband leaned over and went, numbers. She's obsessed with numbers. And I said, what does that mean? And he had this look on his face like, she kills me with the numbers, the details. She always knows the numbers. So as we talked, she said, maybe that's my clique. I'm the numbers agent. And I said, that seems to me as just a person who doesn't know much about real estate, but who has bought a house. Maybe that would work. Maybe that's your thing. It has to be 100% you, and it has to permeate everything you do. Instagram, your Facebook, you're the numbers agent. People, and you're asking them the numbers. How much do you want to spend? You have a chart. I need all the numbers. I will then give you the numbers. Here is this house. Here's all the numbers. And that gives someone something to remember at that party. So if someone says to Lucy at a party, do you know a real estate agent? Again, she's not going to remember your name, but she might go, oh, there's a woman. She is the numbers agent. I read an article about her. She calls herself the numbers agent. She knows all the numbers. And that sound you hear is that person rising above. What is your click, your one major click? But in the next 5 or 10 minutes, an entire franchise was created off of that one click. Mike says a 4-3-2-1 for Charles Norlander. I say, Mike, that is literally genius. You are a genius, sir. I say, well, there's 4 chefs, down to 3, down to 2. I immediately picture, you can see it happening as it's going. I immediately picture a cloche, that silver thing, and they lift it up. And I said, Mike, he can say, you've been chopped. The show's called Chopped. Mike says, you're a genius. I said, I know. Listen, it's called Chopped. Mike says, there's 3 competitions, appetizer, main course. I cut him off. I said, dessert. It's amazing. Genius. Then I say, I know Ted Allen. I just met, literally, this all happened within, it literally might have been 3 minutes, but it could have been 10. I say, I know this woman. She'd be the perfect showrunner. She knows. She introduced me to Ted Allen. She used to work on Queer Eye. I love everything about Ted Allen. Everything that comes out of his mouth is pure genius. You believe everything he says. We should hire Ted Allen. And in, as I say, about 10 minutes, Mike Krupat and I created a franchise that's still on today. It can actually happen that fast.
When I meet with college students, which I do as much of as I can, classes or Zoom classes or whatever, oftentimes someone will say, oh my gosh, you have the best job ever. You're creating game shows for a living. You're creating cooking competitions, dating shows. You have the greatest job ever. It is tons of fun. And yes, 100%, I admit it. There are times where I'm on this floor right here drawing things and using my colorful Sharpies to create what I think a new game board would look like. I watched, a day of television sometimes, watching the same show, even the same episode of the same show over and over and over again, taking notes to see exactly how that format breaks down. Whatever that successful show is, whether it's an episode of Shark Tank or Married at First Sight or America's Got Talent or a classic episode of Family Feud or something like that, there are days that are absolutely tons of fun. It is 100% the greatest job ever. But it is also, when people talk about development hell, it's extremely difficult to succeed. It is very, very hard because there are so many companies and there's so many show ideas, and you need to pitch these buyers. You need to know what they're looking for. You need to know what not only that person is looking for, but the buyer, the whole network, what they're looking for. You need to pitch them the right show on the right day to the right person at the right time. And that almost never happens. I like to say a hit TV show isn't just a miracle. That's what I used to say. Any hit TV show is a miracle. It is not. any hit TV show is at least 3 miracles. There's at least 3.
Mm-hmm.
And most likely there's 4 or 5. It's got to be a series of miracles, a series of things that happens that's just amazing. And you think back, how did that possibly happen?
Before those miracles, let's talk about some of those nightmare stories that you've had and that you reference in your book, The Visionary in Charge.
Well, the classic, I guess, is Chopped, because people who know the show know that right about now, it's about to cross the 1,000th episode.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, after we developed it forever, after we made a pilot, after we poured our blood and sweat into that show, there was a moment where it was killed. Basically, what happened was we pitched the show almost identical to what it is now. We pitched a show with 4 chefs, down to 3, down to 2, down to 1 winner. We pitched a show where it was appetizer, main course, dessert. We even pitched like how we saw the tone, the colors. Almost all of it was in that original document, in that original pitch. But in the development process, Food Network, their major hit competition at that point in time, they had only ever had one, and it was Iron Chef. And there's a moment in Iron Chef that is a bit of a story. It isn't just a studio. They're in Kitchen Stadium, and there's a story that happens right at the beginning of the show. So the development executives at Food Network kept saying, this show Chopped is very simple, and it is now. There is really no story in the final version. But they said, can we add a bit of story to it? Can we add a bit more story? So the very simple premise of 4 chefs down to 3, down to 2, down to 1, cooking these 3 courses and getting eliminated one by one, turned into, in the first pilot, they were cooking for a billionaire at a mansion, and a billionaire that you never saw. And the host, the Ted Allen character, was the butler. And he was giving these assignments to these guest chefs that were coming. And it was exactly the same format beats, but it had this kind of fantastical story element to it. And people call it the dog pilot, because when chefs were eliminated, the butler would feed their chopped dish to the dog, the billionaire's dog. Almost embarrassing to say at this point. Or as Cleve, my partner who creates all the shows with me, she's like, that also could be genius now. We should bring that back. But, when a show like that gets killed, you have really spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you have really talked yourself into, this is going to be potentially amazing. This is going to work. We have figured it out. They've given us all these notes and we've cracked this code. And then they killed it almost instantly. I don't even think they watched the whole thing. I think the higher ups took one look at that tape and was like, this isn't the Food Network. We're killing it.
So that's a great example when we look at something that did eventually get on air and clearly had some momentum, because a year and 4 months is not too long.
So a couple months later, the showrunner, Linda Lee, was in my office, and she said, Dave, we have to go back in there. We have to go back in there. And at that point, if you can imagine, they've paid for this pilot. They've given us notes. We've listened to them. They've given us more notes. We've listened to them. They've given us edit notes. We've listened to them. And then they turned it down cold. So if you're going back in, it is basically saying, we disagree with your development team. You have to come up with a creative way of saying that.
Right. Okay.
And also it could make everyone very angry, right? The logical response to you going back in is them saying, you failed. We gave you this money for this pilot. You failed. And yet Linda is a very, very, first of all, a wonderful person and incredibly talented and very smart and very creative, but also a very, very strong Southern woman, and a woman who I listen to when she talks. And so she said, we have to go back in there. And I was like, I totally agree, but do you really think they're going to listen to us? And she was basically just like, I think we have to go back in.
It's like a Hail Mary.
Yeah. And that's I basically took it as a Hail Mary. And I was like, you know what? I think you're totally right. But we have to go back into we have to go to the top. And Bob Tushman at that point was the top of the chain at Food Network. And we were able to get this meeting with Bob Tushman and Allison Page, who worked with him at that point, and their whole development team. And it was, I had in my hand a manila folder with the original pitch in it. And what we were going to say is, look, we really feel like this original pitch was amazing, and it could be enormous on the Food Network, and it could last for, many years, many seasons. We had this whole speech prepared, and we get in and there's all these people in the room, and I'm about to say, and she's about to say, you just passed on this pilot. We totally disagree with you. And amazingly, because I was starting to sweat, amazingly, Bob Tushman reached over, and he had also the same document I had in my folder. He had the original pitch. And miraculously, amazingly, he said, guys, I don't get this. This pitch is so good. Why isn't this the show that was delivered?
Because we were advised the opposite.
Yeah, it changed everything, because you don't want to insult the development team, like whatever. You don't know what they were hearing, and there's so much internal stuff that happens.
Sure. Yeah.
So we very carefully said, that's the show. That's the pilot we wanted to do. It's the pilot we want to do. The development process took us down this storytelling road, and your team was part of that process the whole time. They asked us to do these things, and we did them. And to his credit, he said, let's do a second pilot. I think he would be thrilled. Everyone at the Food Network is thrilled that he did that. Allison Page is certainly thrilled. And obviously we're thrilled. At the beginning, when you're starting off, you're pitching your soul every single time with the perfect title and the perfect tagline. And you're doing all these things and the perfect documents or the perfect sizzle tape that you've worked on forever. And then it's getting turned down again and again and again and again. And you think, oh, maybe I'm terrible at this. Like, maybe I'm awful. Like, I sold this one thing, this development deal, but maybe this is just going to be nothing but failure. And the mindset has to be, there is no fear in this game and there is no failure. And what I mean by that is, very early on, a couple years into creating and selling TV shows, I started weirdly, as I think back, like a crazy person, obsessing over, is there an equation, a mathematical equation we could come up with that would basically say, how many times would you have to pitch to get to a smash hit television show? So what would be the average? And I figured, well, there must be an average. So the first thing we did was Brandon Tartikoff wrote this book. And in his book, he says, even the best show, even the greatest show of all time, just picture that you're going to have to pitch it 30 times before anyone buys it.
But that's only for the next level, a development deal.
Just to take it to beyond a piece of paper or whatever. And he said, it's just because, look, what you don't know is what time slot do they have? Maybe they don't have the right headspace for that show right now. Maybe the person's in a bad mood. Maybe they don't have any money and they're not telling you, oh, we don't have any money right now to buy new stuff. There's so many reasons people turn things down that have nothing to do with your show. So he said, you're going to have to pitch 30 times. So I wrote that number on the board. It was 30 was the first number we were looking for. Then I went to other production companies. This is right when we were starting off. And I said, of every deal that you get, how many deals do you need for one to go to series? And at this point, we had a couple deals, but I went to these other production companies and I went to a couple of network executives and said, of every deal, how many actually get through and make it to series? And basically the answer was 1 out of 4. And so that's 30 times 4. Okay, so you need to pitch 30 times 4. Now I was like, okay, of everything that gets on air, how many actually becomes a hit? How many gets to season 3 was the number in my head.
Yeah.
A lot of shows get a season 2 for strange reasons. It's very hard to get to season 3, 4, 5. The average answer was 8. And so I had on our board 30 times 4 times 8 equals 960. I don't think I'm messing up the math. Maybe I am.
Well, they can pick up the book if they want to see the full equation.
Exactly. And that helped us so much because every time we got turned down, I just thought, well, that's one more step on the way to 960. Now, every pitch has to be great in that equation. You can't pitch a dud. You can't pitch something that everyone rolls their eyes at. It has to be great pitches.
Right.
And Chopped was right around pitch 860 or something, 870. And so we kept a log of all the pitches. So we kind of beat the odds